No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. He is forcing federal law enforcement agencies to do his bidding, all because I did my job.
I think Letitia James missed her calling. She should have worked in Hollywood.
CrossroadsIRL.com.
Why does it matter that we pay attention to what the Democrats and the mainstream media said when Letitia James was going after President Trump and what they are saying now after the DOJ finally got an indictment on Letitia James, which was recently announced? Watch as we unpack the double standard that has evolved over the last 10 years in the case of Letitia James going after President Trump and now Trump's DOJ prosecuting Letitia James. In the end, it will be impossible for you not to see the contradictions and the hypocrisy. I'll be reacting to videos from Maze from X, and I'll be leaving a link to his profile in the description of the video. And while I'm busy promoting someone else's channel, please consider subscribing, liking, and sharing this video. Now let's play the clip.
NBC News has exclusively learned that the newly elected incoming New York Attorney General plans to launch some sweeping investigations into President Trump, into his family. Letitia James tells NBC News, quote, "We will use every area of the law to investigate President Trump and his business transactions and that of his family as well." She plans to look into the following: Donald Trump's real estate holdings in New York, that June 2016 Trump Tower meeting with a Russian official, any government subsidies that Donald Trump received, whether he's in violation of the Emoluments Clause, the Trump Foundation.
So Letitia James was just indicted by a grand jury on 2 felony counts. And the news has been ablaze with reporting saying that President Trump is going after his political enemies. Yet, I can't help but notice how MSNBC in 2018, when they announced that Letitia James was running on the back of her promise to prosecute President Trump with every aspect of the law, and how excited they looked. They announced this with so much flourish that it didn't appear like they were being balanced about their reporting. They all wanted President Trump to be indicted because they just didn't like him.
You also intend to prosecute him after he is out of office, correct?
Joy, again, our investigation currently is civil in nature. It is not criminal. In the event that we uncover any activity or conduct, if in the event that we uncover any conduct, oh yes,
but will you go ahead with the civil suit?
Yes, our civil suit will continue, whether he's president or not. And so after January 20th at 12 o'clock, our investigation will continue, Joy.
There's no way a potential pardon for Trump or his 3 eldest kids would shield them from anything you're investigating. Am I right? That's what you just said, I believe.
Correct. He cannot pardon himself. What he could do is step down and allow the Vice President Pence, to pardon him. In all likelihood, I suspect that he will pardon his family members, his children, his son-in-law, and individuals in his administration, as well as some of his close associates. And then I suspect at some point in time, he will step down and allow the Vice President to pardon him. Now, it's important to understand he is pardoned from federal crimes, but he is not pardoned from state crimes. Last year, I introduced a bill in the state legislature which would close the pardon loophole so that individuals such as the President of the United States would not evade justice. It's important that we have this check on presidential powers. And in the legislature, the state legislature, I'm so happy they passed that bill, and it is now the law in the state of New York. President Trump cannot avoid justice in the great state of New York.
When the left tells you who they are, believe them. Here's Letitia James telling us how she's closing the loopholes on presidential pardons, and that a blue city within a blue state with a Democrat AG colluded in order to go after a former president after he leaves office by ensuring that there will be no presidential protections for him. And she announced this ahead of time in this interview on The View in 2020. Now, again, let's look at how the ladies of The View are so excited about the prospect of seeing President Trump embarrassed and dragged through the court system and possibly spending the rest of his life in jail. But today, you hear the concern and the horror in their voices when the Trump DOJ is simply investigating these individuals for crimes that essentially they may have committed, and they are in such trepidation that President Trump's DOJ is doing essentially what they should be doing by upholding the law?
No one is above the law.
Nobody's above the law.
No person is above the law.
No one 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 is above the law.
You're not above the law. You're not an elite. You're not untouchable. And so it's nice to see that the rule of law has returned.
Now, if this sentiment continued through this indictment of Letitia James, then I would have said that these were really good players and all they want is for the laws to be upheld. But that's not the case. As soon as the roles were flipped, all of these people jumped on social media and began to scream about how President Trump has an enemies list and is going after his political opponents. More on that later.
Mr. Trump and the Trump Organization saved an estimated $150 million by receiving favorable interest rates that were only provided based on the false and misleading statements of financial condition. White-collar financial crime is not a victimless crime. When the well-connected break the law to take in more money that they are entitled to, it reduces resources to working people, to regular people, to small businesses, and to all taxpayers. Everyday people cannot lie to a bank about how much money they have in order to get a favorable loan to buy a home or to send their kid to college. And if they did, the government would throw the book at them.
Now, all that sounds well and good if she was really considering the plight of the regular American citizen who can't afford to get access to the same benefits that wealthy people do have access to. And look, by no means is Letitia James not a wealthy person. She is a lawyer who began her career and grew up and went up the ranks and eventually became the AG of New York. So she is not a poor person. However, she puts up this air of wanting to defend the rights of regular citizens by going after President Trump. And of course, the regular guy sees this press conference and says, oh, she's very interested in protecting us from the bad billionaire class like President Trump, not knowing that it's other billionaires who don't like President Trump going after another billionaire called President Trump. So that isn't the point. The point really is that she announces the fact that she's suing President Trump in 2022. And then by 2024, after the case kicks off, and it's not looking too good for Donald Trump, she says this.
No matter how powerful you are, no matter how much money you think you may have, no one is above the law.
Yep, and I agree. No one is above the law. It only makes sense when it applies to everyone, not just the one person that all of you hate. A blue city in a blue state being prosecuted by a Democrat AG. That doesn't look suspicious at all, but it actually does when you're on the outside looking in. Now, some of you who are watching might share the sentiment of Adam Schiff when he says, another dark day for our democracy, another vindictive prosecution of someone on the president's enemies list. President Trump was on Letitia James's enemies list. He was on the Democrat Party's enemies list. He was on the state of New York's enemies list. But he didn't say anything when President Trump was being dragged through the courts. He was ecstatic. More on that later. Another terrible abuse of the justice system as an instrument of Trump's retribution campaign. These actions cannot and will not deter Americans from standing up to this increasingly authoritarian regime. I will take this seriously if he was consistent across board. Now, here's him through the years showing how consistent he is.
On the day Donald Trump leaves office, the Justice Department may indict him.
Very strongly in favor of indicting the president when he is out of office.
I don't think the incoming president should be threatening his political opponents with jail time. That's not the kind of talk we should hear from a president in a democracy.
In 2019 and 2018, he was strongly in favor of the president getting indicted. In December of 2024, he changed his tune because it's now time for the Republicans to be in office, and now he's not in favor of anyone getting indicted by an incoming president. Such hypocrisy. Of course, he definitely is the poster child for contradictions. Now, in the end, you might be asking, so what is Letitia James being indicted for and why does it matter? So let's jump into the court document and just have a look at what she's facing. According to the court document, she's being indicted on 2 counts. The first count being bank fraud and the second count being a false statement to a financial institution. So the court document details how she, Letitia A. James, was a resident of Brooklyn, New York, but a borrower on a Fannie Mae-backed mortgage loan for the property located at 3121 Perrone Avenue, Norfolk, Virginia. That is someone who is a resident of a different state trying to get a mortgage loan at another state. Now, why is that such a problem? Let's read on. On or about August 17, 2020, James, as sole borrower, purchased the 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom property located at 3121 Perron Avenue, Norfolk, Virginia, for approximately $137,000, financed with a mortgage loan of approximately $109,600, backed by Fannie Mae. The loan was originated by the OVM Financial under a signed second home rider, which required James, as sole borrower, to occupy and use the property as her secondary residence and prohibited its use as a time-sharing or otherwise shared ownership arrangement or agreement that requires her either to rent the property or give any other person any control over the property. Now, despite the representations, the property was not occupied or used by Letitia James as a secondary residence, but was instead used as a rental investment property, renting the property to a family. Oops. Now here's the clincher. The misrepresentation allowed James to obtain favorable loan terms not available for investment properties, including a note rate of 3%, avoiding the 0.815% higher comparable investment property rate of 3.815%, resulting in approximately $17,837 in rate savings over the lifetime of the loan, a seller credit of approximately $3,288, exceeding the seller credit for investment properties by approximately $1,096, for total ill-gotten gains of approximately $18,933 over the life of the loan. This is exactly what she accused Donald Trump of doing with his properties being represented differently on the documents for the bank loan. Now, I'm not going to bore you with reading the entire document. It's out there, and I'm going to link to the document in the video description so you can go through it yourself. But in essence, she's cooked. So she did exactly what she accused President Trump of doing, knowingly did it, and is attempting to gaslight every one of us to believe that this isn't a charge that is going to stick and that she is going to beat the rap and that President Trump is going after her.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. He is forcing federal law enforcement agencies to do his bidding, all because I did my job as the New York State Attorney General. These charges are baseless, and the president's own public statements make clear that his only goal is political retribution at any cost. The president's actions are a grave violation of our constitutional order and have drawn sharp criticism from members of both parties.
I think Letitia James missed her calling. She should have worked in Hollywood. Anywho, we read the court documents. We'll see where the case goes. A grand jury did say that she's worthy of indictment. She got indicted. She's grandstanding, claiming that President Trump is attacking his political enemies and is weaponizing the justice system when they did the exact same thing against President Trump. Not just against him, but against anyone within his orbit. They attempted to sink his entire family, sink his businesses, bankrupt him, and they did it with a smile on their faces, with the full-throated support of the mainstream media. Why does this matter? This matters because truth matters. If you have a policy that you need to exercise on one party, then when it is exercised on another party that you like, you shouldn't step up and begin to claim retribution or that you're being attacked or on an enemy's list. You did the exact same thing before he left office, and now that he's back in office and all of you are getting investigated, with some evidence here and there of wrongdoing, the court system will let us know in the end. We're not holding our breath about anyone going to jail. We haven't seen any high-profile jail time of anyone on the left, but we have seen several prominent people who went after or who went against the Democrat Party getting prosecuted and being sent to jail. So we're not holding our breath about that, but at least we intend to see how the legal system plays out and really see if the two-tier justice system that everyone has been complaining about is still in full force, even when there is a Republican in office and there is a Republican-led DOJ. So whether she does go to jail eventually or not, the point is, when you see the mainstream media and politicians backing someone that they like when they're doing something to someone else, like Letitia James going after President Trump, and they never say anything like this is a threat to democracy, this is against the Constitution, we're attacking our political enemies, and on, and you never see them say that, But when the roles are reversed and investigations break out and people are being indicted and they begin to sing the song of them being persecuted, being politically targeted and attacked, and being on an enemies list, it screams double standards and hypocrisy, especially when you throw in the glee on the faces of everyone who was in support of the other person being on the receiving end of the political and legal prosecution. But when it turns over to their side, they begin to mewl and squeal about how the justice system is being weaponized and how the world is about to burn because all of this is happening to them. When you see all of this play out before your eyes, especially when you pull up all the receipts from the last 10 years, you can't unsee it.
Subscribe.
Thanks for watching, liking, and sharing this video. Please subscribe, leave a super thank, and join my membership to keep me doing this. A huge thank you to my supporters listed on the screen. Thank you for your donations and membership.
Thanks for watching.